But anyways, you gentlemen are dealing with some black women who may be the third generation of single mother, and because they absolutely will not submit to a man, they'll find every way to avoid following your lead and being obedient, and they'll lie to you. So I want to familiarize you with some of their tactics. The number one tactic is they'll use the cloak of religion. So what they'll do is they'll say, what you told me to do, like that's against my religion, that's against God. And so they'll go ahead and pick up the good book and they'll selectively explain to you, as though there's some kind of theologian, why they're not going to comply. You're like, well, you said you want to do fill in the blank with something you're interested in or something you told her to do. And she go ahead, pick up the good book and like, in Matthew chapter 2, and you're like, wait, hold on, shorty. Like, you follow pieces of the book? Like, didn't the book tell you to be a virgin? Huh? Didn't the book tell you not to get drunk and start kissing your girlfriends? Huh? Didn't the book tell you to not do all those things? So what they'll do is they'll say, you know, I follow God first and foremost. So yeah, I'll follow my man as here's the kicker. I'll follow my man as long as he's following God. But the problem, what they don't tell you is that they try to interpret the good book. And the good book itself actually tells you that it's not for women to interpret. It specifically says women should not be the preachers of the word. And in addition, they should learn in quiet subjection. And if they have a question, meaning a lack of understanding or a point of ignorance, they should ask their husbands, ask a man. So they try to use the cloak of religion to get away from following you. So they want to pretend to follow a heavenly father or follow a patriarch in the sky, an imaginary man, which is a creation in their mind, which is to say God and Jesus is who they say it is in their mind, so that they can escape following you. That's number one strategy for those women who claim to be religious. And I will remind you that pretty much no woman is religious. And if they are religious, you're the God. You need to be the God. Otherwise, it's utter nonsense, because they're not principled by nature. The truth is not in them. They're deceivers by nature. Makeup, high heels, everything false. So it's improbable that Patricia, feel free if you'd like to come on. I'd be happy to give you a word. Any woman who's on, I'd be happy to give you a word. But the truth is not in them, and with that being the case, they could never be the leader in the relationship who stands on principle and is able to be consistent in following principle in a disciplined manner. That's not their nature. So religion is number one way that they escape following you. Here's number two. What they'll do is they'll, instead of saying no directly, they'll use different tactics. One tactic is, oh, maybe, or they'll push it off till another time. They'll say, oh, I'll do it later, or I'll do it if this. They'll start creating conditionals. So instead of saying no, they drown you in the gray area. Here's another way that they'll do it. You tell them to do something, and then they'll start asking you a million questions, right? So you say, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And they'll say, oh, are you sure that's a good idea? You'll be driving somewhere. You'll say, hey, I need you to keep straight. Just stay on this road. Then next thing you know, they make a left turn. You're like, why'd you do that? I said, keep straight. Oh, well, the GPS said, oh, is the GPS your man or am I your man? And they'll say, oh, well, don't you want to get there faster? They start asking you questions. So they're questioning you. They're questioning your authority. And they use this as a strategy as opposed to being directly defiant. And in their mind, as long as they're not directly defiant, if they're passive aggressive, if they're, fox-like in their defiance, then they think that they've gotten away with it successfully, which is why, unfortunately, you must identify it when it occurs, whether it's manipulation, clothed or unclothed, point it out and then not stand for it. Because here's another thing. When you point out the manipulation, the first thing they're going to do is deny, deny, deny. Come on now. Here's another tactic that they'll use to not listen to you, not follow you. So you'll say, hey, do this. And it doesn't matter what this is. If you said do it, she needs to do it. And if she's not going to do it, the cost of that disobedience is the relationship, depending on what the matter is, right? There's sometimes women are going to act like women. Human beings are going to be human beings. But if you're in a situation and you say, hey, love, what I'm telling you to do right here, this is an existential threat to our relationship. If you do not comply, our relationship is going to die. So then they decide not to comply. And this is an important thing to teach the children coming up. That's why I'm creating the training and event center. But anyways, you tell them, hey, you got to do this. And then they say, oh, no, I can't do it. Or, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. Okay, cool. Relationship's over. Then they want to start copping pleas. And what they'll do is they'll bring in other individuals as though the opinion of the community is what matters, as though the perspective of their mother, their aunt, their grandma, their best friend. Oh, I asked my girlfriend so and so, and she said that, that wasn't a good idea. Or she said that didn't make sense. Or she said she wouldn't do that. And it's like, I wouldn't care if the whole planet Earth got together and created a goddamn petition to support what you're thinking is right. It doesn't matter. What I said is law. You live in the United States of Marquettica. You got to abide by the law there. I don't care what's going on in the society. So the woman has to understand that you're her God, you're her government, you're her everything. You're her police department, you're her 911. And when she rebels against that, you can be sure that if anything ever goes wrong, she's going to snitch on you. She's going to call the police on you. She's going to sue you. She's going to become vindictive because she doesn't identify as a part of you and your family under your family name, So that's always going to be problematic. And they'll find a million ways to clothe disobedience. And one of the worst things that they'll do is they'll ask their mother, who's also a single mother, or their grandmother, who's also a single mother. And what they're doing is they're getting an affirmation of their errant thinking, not realizing that their errant thinking is merely a duplication of the person who is a single mother that created them. So it's a single mother or a soon to be single mother asking another single mother what to do. She doesn't know what to do. That's why she's a single mother. You could ask your grandmother, well, she's wise. Yeah, but she's also a single mother. So she didn't know what to do. She created a single mother. So they don't have the answers. I'm sorry. Gray hair does not mean wisdom. People who have a life outcome that is not what you want, you should not listen to them. I don't listen to people about money who have less money than me. I don't listen to people about fitness who are in inferior physical shape. So you want to listen to those who actually know. And here's the problem. We always want to think well of ourselves. I've noticed this very consistently, even with my mother, when she refers to her upbringing and her mother and her experience. Everything's so beautiful when it's remembered. I trust that when it was actually occurring, it wasn't so sweet. But she might observe something, whether it's on social media or in the society. My mother will say, "Oh, my mother would have never allowed that, or my mother would have whooped us for doing this, or my mother would have said that, and grandma was strict and this and that." And I'm like, your mom had like 4 baby daddies. She's a whore. She's an idiot. Like, what are you talking about? She's completely incompetent at being a wife mother. So what do you mean? Like, maybe she did whoop you, but it probably wasn't even in an intelligent way. She didn't apply corporal punishment appropriately. She probably just whooped you because she was angry and emotional. It was like an emotional release for her psychotic self. And this is something that you observe in Black females, like just the real viciousness when they discipline the child, when they engage in corporal punishment, when in fact corporal punishment should be measured and dispassionate. But I say all that to say, life is better remembered, and people want to think well of themselves. So they want to speak well of their parents. They want to pretend as though their parents were right and wise and did the right thing. And they don't have the ability to objectively acknowledge, you know what? My parents were not good at this or that, or they screwed up, or they failed to teach me X, Y, and Z. And as a result, it has created deficiencies in me. I'll give you an example of something that I notice consistently in women is the inability, and this is based on parenting, wholly based on parenting. Like, for example, I was raised with very disciplined people guiding me. My uncle, my grandmother, very disciplined people. And my grandmother at times, she was sober. She was very Christian. She was retired. She was older. So she had time to force me to comply. My uncle was a mean SOB, and he didn't take any stuff. So he had wrath and masculinity to make me comply. I was scared to death half the time. So I wasn't even, and also by nature, I follow my old heads, like we have different natures. But anyways, I say that to say this. When I observe women who who cannot refuse to obey, And also they can't accept the consequences of their failure to obey. It's the inability psychologically to accept that there are consequences, and consequences are going to be consistent, meaning every time you screw up, there will be a consequence. It will be consistent. It won't be like you're going to slide sometimes or you're going to get by sometimes. Every time there will be a consequence. And also, women, a man of his word. That's the phrase, not a woman of her word. So when you're raised by a woman, you're not in a situation where you're dealing with consistency and dispassionate discipline. You're dealing with emotionalism and inconsistency. So as a man, when I tell the woman, if you do X, you're going to get this outcome. Or if I tell a woman, hey, this is going to be the consequence, they'll do it and then they get shocked when you give them the consequence, or they think that they can persuade you, maybe because they could persuade their mothers. But me, I cannot be persuaded, and they have trouble accepting that, and it's a direct expression of the father not being there to show them that masculinity is decisive and it's unshakable. When the man has made a ruling, that's it, folks. Billy, that's it, folks. There shall be no going back on the word. There's not going to be any change. And if there is, in the rare cases, because I decided, not because you persuaded. And so the most important thing is that you are dealing with a female who grew up with discipline, grew up with consequences, and that means that she's been corrected before. She's had her parents tell her, hey, that's wrong, that's right, you need to do this, you didn't do that well enough. That means she can take feedback from you. If she didn't have parents that did that, every time you tell her something, she's going to want to argue, or she's going to feel attacked, or she's going to feel like it's lowering her self-esteem. It's hugely important that the woman be able to take feedback because that minimizes true conflict. Being able to take feedback is a component of conflict resolution. And I really do want you guys to be able to, if you choose to be with a Black woman, and they're gorgeous. I mean, that's their unique value add is the beauty, and in some cases, it's the culture. Like I really love a woman who has that flavor of the Black American woman, not the ghetto, tacky, long nails, big mouth, but just the sauce and the soul of a Black woman and an American Black woman. But anyways, that being said, when you observe her engaging certain behaviors, you can point them out because I've identified them, and you can say to her, "Hey, let me ask you a question. I just told you to drive straight down this road until you see a gas station or a freeway on ramp, but instead you decide to turn left onto a dirt road. If your boss at work told you to drive straight down this street until you see a gas station or a freeway on ramp, what would you do?" She'll probably acknowledge, "Oh, like, I drive straight down." Well, why is that? She's like, "Because my boss said it." Well, hey, guess what? I'm your boss. Yeah, I'm your boss. So do what I told you to do. Well, you want a woman who doesn't think? No, I'd love for you to think, but your thinking should not ever go against my rulings or my directions. And if you are just convinced that there's something I missed, feel free to tell me, but don't go out here operating in direct contradiction to what I said. And so sometimes you just have to help them think through it. But I would encourage you to look at the appropriate demographic of women because at a certain point, they can't be helped. And generally speaking, you want to find the ones that are already good to go as opposed to trying to re raise a Black female, because I can assure you that the truth matters not unless they have their heart and mind in a way that makes them really want to make progress in life.